It was really awesome meeting Oprah, and I swore that I would not wash my hand after I shook hers, but that was 14 years ago, so luckily I have. Thanks. There's an old saying that an ounce of prevention beats a pound of cure. If you're not feeling well, you have a cough, you should probably take it easy. Maybe take some cough syrup. If it develops into a fever, you might need to see the doctor for an antibiotic. If you don't take care of things early on, you could end up in the hospital with pneumonia, much sicker and with a much bigger doctor bill. And these principles of prevention and early intervention apply to a lot of things, including affordable housing and homelessness. There is simply not enough affordable housing in our community and really across the country. People's incomes, particularly renters' incomes, are not keeping pace with the rise in housing costs. And affordable housing is very difficult and expensive to build. There's a lot of regulations. It needs operating subsidies in order to fully cash flow. And there's a lot of not in my backyard opposition when developers do try to bring it into a community. And what happens is for every 100 very low-income households, there are only about 30 affordable, available units for them. So what happens to those other 70 households? Many of them fall into homelessness. Here in Minnesota, we have the Wilder Research Center, which does a homeless count every 3 years. And in the past 20 years, we have seen homelessness triple. And it has tripled also among families with children. In fact, that is the fastest growing population of the homeless right now. So when you think about someone who's homeless, you may think of the stereotypical older man with mental illness living under a bridge, and sadly, they are out there. But who you should picture is a 6-year-old child. And when we have this huge increase in need without a corresponding increase in resources, we're forced to target those scarce resources to the most needy, the disabled, people who've been homeless many times or for a long time. In fact, I have been with Solid Ground and doing this work for almost 20 years, and I have seen the change in the families that we're serving, much more complex needs. In fact, in our community and across the nation, there are new efforts underway to coordinate entry into shelter and housing so that we can better target those scarce resources. And I fully support these efforts. I've been a part of the efforts locally to do this. But it is a bit concerning because it tends to shift the focus away from trying to prevent families from being homeless in the first place. It's like we're waiting for people to fall off that cliff and get dragged across the rocks before we step in and help them. And this is the price we pay. Children and their parents living in cars, bouncing around from place to place, living in motels and shelters. It's like that cough that developed into pneumonia, and now we've got a much bigger, much more expensive problem. And those who pay the most are our kids. Homeless kids tend to have more medical illnesses, they have more emotional and behavioral problems, developmental delays, and they do much more poorly in school than kids who are stably housed. There's actually a federal program called McKinney Vento that was developed about 30 years ago. And among other things, it guides the education of homeless children and youth. And the purpose of the program is to make sure that no matter where a child is staying, they can get to school and receive the education and the resources that they need. So a cornerstone of this program is transportation, making sure that the bus picks up the child at the shelter or whatever that temporary location is where they're staying and gets them to and from school. The problem is that as more and more kids become homeless, these costs are becoming unsustainable. In Minnesota, we spent more than $12 million last year just on transportation. These are not support staff costs, these are not teaching costs, just transportation. And again, the program is designed to help bring that stability and that consistency that kids need in their education, so it makes sense, right? But it's not working. Homeless children in Minnesota consistently do more poorly than the average student. In fact, the reading proficiency rates for homeless children are 1/2 the statewide average. And in math, it's 1/3. Our kids are failing, and we're failing our kids. We don't have enough affordable housing in the community. We're letting families become homeless. Children develop longer, deeper problems because they're becoming homeless, and then our education efforts aren't sufficient to get them what they need. So what can we do differently? We can prevent them from becoming homeless in the first place by providing housing assistance instead of buses. If we go back and look at these same figures, we can see that we could provide housing assistance for a family of 3 to 4 people and impact that many more people than just those 7 students in Mahtomedi. We spent almost $55,000 last year on 7 students, shuttling them to and from shelter to school. If we offered monthly rental assistance, about $500 a month or $6,000 a year, we could impact not just those 7 students, but their parents and their siblings as well. And because we're preventing them from becoming homeless, we're preventing all of those deeper, more expensive problems that kids tend to develop when they've experienced homelessness. And because homelessness tends to be generational, we could be impacting generations to come just by redirecting our resources. Now, I've seen this happen many times at Solid Ground. We have housed many families over the years. In fact, just last year, we had a family, 2 parents, 5 kids, big family. Both parents were working, but they didn't make a lot of money. And when their son developed a chronic illness and the medical bills started rolling in, they fell way behind. And they were facing eviction. Now, we could have waited for them to lose that housing and go into shelter and then tried to figure out how to bus them to and from their kids' school, but instead, we stepped in, we started providing rental assistance, we paid it directly to the landlord, and the family continued to pay a portion of rent as well. But we made that housing affordable to them until they could get back on their feet, make sure their child was healthy and doing well, and then we stepped out and they continue to be in that housing, and they continue to do well. Now, we don't need to put all of our resources towards homeless prevention. It's not going to work for everybody. We still need those deep end services for people who have been homeless many times or for a long time. But if we really want to move the dial on ending family homelessness, we need to go upstream and prevent it in the first place. Thank you.